Hey Tigers, welcome to your digital reteach for Flow of Energy. This digital reteach is all about the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skill 7.5C. It is your job to diagram the flow of energy through living systems, including food chains, food webs, and energy pyramids. You need to know how you're going to get credit for this reteach so that you can take the next retest. First of all, make sure you're using the Cornell Note worksheet from your teacher while you watch this video. Use the notes and take notes, answer the questions, and write your summary. When you're done, show your completed Cornell Note worksheet to your teacher. They will then give you information about the next retest. Let's start by looking at food chains. This is a pretty basic idea. Some of the real important items that you always want to remember on food chains, even if it's not there, is that the sun is always the original source of energy. Now, most food chains will not list the sun. It's just accepted that everybody understands that all the energy starts with the sun. The arrows are really about where the energy is going. So if we follow the arrows as it goes from the walnuts to the rodent, then the rodent gets eaten by the snake, and the snake gets eaten by the eagle, we can watch the energy flow through the food chain. And really, that's all food chain is about. The energy. Focus on the arrows. The arrows demonstrate and represent where the energy is going. Sometimes you don't always get a nice picture for your food chain. A lot of times we'll just give you the name of the organism. You can also do this when you make your food chains. So it could be as simple as saying acorn, arrow, mouse, arrow, snake, arrow, hawk. Even if you get organisms that you don't know the name of, a lot of times they'll give you some sort of a rodent name that's nowhere near the area in Texas that you live. That's okay. Just understand where the energy is going. That's all that really matters on a food chain. A good example of this is just you trying to figure out what works best. So I picked some very basic organisms that even if you don't know everything about them, you should still be able to try this. So if I give you the skeleton of a food chain, and you'll see the same skeleton in your notes, I want you to pause the video. And while the video is paused, take a second and write down what makes the most sense. There's only going to be one correct answer, but what makes the most sense for these 4 different organisms and where they should be located to make a food chain that actually makes sense. Go ahead and pause the video now. As you progress through middle school science, you won't see as many food chains. A food web is a more realistic idea of an ecosystem or a biome. It gives you a whole lot more organisms to look at, and the pure idea that usually each thing and each organism is going to eat different organisms. Very rarely is it one straight chain. So in this organism, we see a whole bunch, or in this food web, we see a whole bunch of different organisms. Squirrels, iguanas, grasshoppers, there's seeds, there's leaves, all these different things. When you first look at this, it can sometimes look a little confusing. But really, you don't need to study everything. Just pay attention to what the questions ask, and you can figure out what's happening. Just like the food chains, the arrows are going to show you where the energy is going. So if we just start here and I look at the seeds, energy goes from the seeds to the iguana. So obviously that means the iguana ate the seeds and took the energy. And then later on, there's 2 different creatures that might eat the iguana. So I can watch where the energy could go. And once again, that's all this essential skill is about, is knowing where the energy goes. So the first question I want you to answer on your notes for this part of the food webs is, between the ocelot and the iguana, who is the predator and who is the prey? Pause the video and write down your answer for which one it would be. These are key terms that you just have to remember. Now I'll give you a little bit of help because this is a reteach and this isn't the test. If we're thinking about a predator is the one who is preying on somebody else. They're going after them. They're hunting them. The prey is the one who is getting hunted and who is going to be basically taken down by the predator. Think about that while you answer this question. Pause the video if you need more time. Question 2. This question's more basic, but it's a great example of a question that you can often get with a food web because it's all about the energy and where it's coming from and where it's going. So for question number 2, I want you to think about the iguana And you need to tell me where the iguana gets its energy from. How does the iguana get energy? What organism does that come from? Pause the video if you need more time. Energy pyramids will be the final way that we will diagram energy as it flows through these different ecosystems in these different areas. In an energy pyramid, a lot of times it's just shown with a triangle. Sometimes it's not even drawn as a pyramid like we see in this picture, but this will still give us a good idea. The first little concept and keyword I want you to think about is trophic levels. So we would call this bottom area the first trophic level 1. The next level, trophic level 2, trophic level 3, and trophic level 4. So that's just leave it at that. It's as simple as that, just a term you have to know for energy pyramids. So in this case, the producers, or the organisms that can produce their own food, usually going to be plants in this case, is going to be on the first level of the energy pyramid. That's where the most energy is. And you can tell the most energy is down here because that piece is bigger. Then you have the herbivores. These are on the second trophic level. These guys are taking the energy from the first level. Remember, a herbivore is something that eats only plants. Now, there's not as much energy up here, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but you can tell there's less energy because the space is less on the pyramid. Then you get the primary carnivore. Now, your carnivores are kind of your meat eaters. In this case, the carnivore is going to be eating these herbivores. Still less energy. And then if there's a top carnivore, this carnivore is going to be eating the guys from trophic level number 3 for his energy. Less energy up here. Now let's take a look at that less energy. And the big idea is the energy from this level travels up to this level. But not all the energy got there, and that's why that trophic level is smaller. And then later on, energy from this level goes up to this level. And this trophic level is smaller yet. And then finally, at the end, energy goes from this trophic level up to this level, and it's less still. If you look at these numbers, you'll notice it goes down by 10% every single time. This is the 10% rule. So in this example, they used mass just to kind of show how much stuff is there. So here there's 1,000 kilograms of producers. You could turn that into energy if you want, but the same idea applies. Only 10% of the stuff from here makes it to this level. So 10% of 1,000 is 100. So the obvious question is, well, wait a minute, what happened to the other 90% of the energy? Where did it go? And the answer to that is the plants used it up. These plants used up that 90% of the rest of that energy just in living, just in staying alive, growing the plant bigger, trying to do their daily things that they do, taking in the carbon dioxide, breathing out the oxygen. This happens, and that uses lots of the energy. And then as you look at this level, only 10% of 100 makes it up to the next level. So only 10 kilograms get up to this primary carnivore. Where'd the other 90 kilograms go? Same thing. These herbivores used that 90% of that energy just to live. The heat that they're giving off and the way that heat dissipates, all of that uses energy. These guys living their life, running, burning energy, living. That's where that energy went. And then finally, 10% of this 10 makes it up here, and that's 1 kilogram. So by the top, there's hardly any of the original energy left over. But once again, life has to happen, and as life happens, it uses that energy. All right, really for this essential knowledge and skill, this is pretty much it. It's a big concept idea with a lot of random questions, but it all ties back to those 3 things. You got the food chains, food webs, and energy pyramids. If you have a basic understanding of where the energy is going and how it's being used, you can answer any question. So at this point, the video is going to end, and you need to finish your notes, and you need to finish your summary, and then go and show that to your teacher, and they'll tell you what to do for the reteach.